So growing up, just to be honest, I felt like I had a bad taste in my mouth about Jesus. I had a bad taste in my mouth about God, because I would go to church and I would hear so-called Christians say these things that you needed to do, in order to make it to heaven. And then I would see them outside of church, and they weren't living the life that they were telling me that I needed to live. As a kid, I didn't have a relationship with Jesus in my heart. I only had the church. So I correlated my relationship in my heart with Jesus to my relationship with the church, and that wasn't a good relationship that I had growing up. This went on for years. I was forced to go to church my entire life until, I got into high school. My parents split up, no longer had to go to church anymore. Went to college, was the furthest away from God that I probably could have been. The entire time I just felt empty inside. I had a lot of friends doing a lot of things that I probably shouldn't have been doing. I felt like on the outside to everybody else I looked happy, but when the lights would get turned off and I was alone in my dorm room, I'd feel alone. I'd feel no peace. I'd feel anxiety. I'd feel just a burden, a lot on my shoulders. I guess you could say it felt like. So a couple months ago in my life, things began to change. I have a beautiful son. He's 7 months old. His name is Kai. And I would look at him and I would just get this feeling and this yearning that I needed to get closer to God, because I didn't want him to miss out on the opportunity to get to know God. So I felt this yearning for him. Me and my partner, Haley, we talked about this for a couple weeks in a row. Should we go to church? Should we go to church? So we talked about this for a few weeks. In the midst of this, my dad was inviting me to church, wanting me to come, wanting me to get closer to God during all of this. A few weeks we talked about should we go back or should we not? And there's this one Friday night where we're sitting there for, had to have been 1, 2, maybe even 3 hours. We were just sitting there talking about whether or not we should go back to church. And every Saturday morning we would go to this cafe down on downtown Garrison called 5th Street Cafe. Well, that night, at the end of us talking about it, we prayed, not even knowing what we were doing when we were praying, but we prayed about it and we were like, okay, if this is what it is that we needed to do, then send us a sign. So that morning we go to the cafe that we had been going to every single week for months on end. And we're in the cafe and everybody's looking at Kai, they're looking at us, they're telling us that we have a beautiful family. But there was this couple sitting in the corner, probably in their 60s, and they were just looking at us. It didn't feel like a good vibe. Well, we go to leave the restaurant and we go to walk out, and the lady of the couple that was sitting in the corner, that it felt like they were judging me, she came up and we went to go walk out, and we turned around and she's looking at us with tears in her face, and she literally looked at us and she said, I just wanted to let you guys know that God's been talking to me and that you guys are on the right path, and what you are trying to do is the right answer, and that you are doing the right thing, and that you have a beautiful family and you have a beautiful son. I just wanted to let you guys know that, things are going to happen in your life. They're going to be hard, but I can tell that you two are meant for each other, and God wanted me to let you guys know that. The next morning, Sunday, our friend Allie invited us to this church. We came into this church, and we have been coming ever since. And it hasn't been easy. I'm not going to sit here and act like it has. I'm not going to sit here and act like I haven't fallen short. But since that breakfast, I felt like I fully surrendered myself to him. So the answer is I don't feel alone anymore. I know that anything that I go through in this life, because the devil's going to test me, the world's going to test me, sin is going to test me. Anything that I go through in this life, I now know that I'm not going to go through it alone. So first of all, I'd like to thank Jesus. I would like to thank my beautiful partner, Haley, for going down this journey with me. It would be very hard to do this alone, and she's been right there with me every step of the way. I'd like to thank my son. I don't think if he wasn't brought into this world, I wouldn't know if I would have had this feeling to go do this. And then lastly, I want to thank my dad, because if it wasn't for my dad pushing me to get to church, pushing me to get closer to God, to build my own relationship with him, if he wouldn't have tried over and over and over and over and over to get me to do those things, then I probably wouldn't be sitting in this chair right now. And whoever finds God finds life.